What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. This time I would like to talk about my picks for the 10 best mill commanders in the format. And when I say mill, what I mean is any kind of commander that benefits from either self-mill or milling out your opponents. And sometimes it's not even just straight up mill into the graveyard, sometimes it's exiling cards off the top of your opponent's library, so I hope that does clear up the criteria for you going into this video. But before I move on to the top 10, first I would like to remind you that most of you who are watching right now are not actually subscribed to the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Your support means a lot to me, I really appreciate it. So number 10 here we have Serku Dimir Lobotomist. Now at first glance this is the kind of commander where it's easy to assume it's not going to be as strong in commander because you're only really able to target one opponent at a time, or two if you cast a blue and black spell. That being said, this deck does go from 0 to 100 if you make it more competitive. Deciding to go with the faster lantern combos means that Serku can exile all of your opponent's libraries pretty easily. It's really one of the only commanders on here that isn't really going to do much for casual play. In fact, I would never recommend this for casual play. The way you cast spells normally just makes this ability so inefficient, but really on here at number 10 because of that competitive edge if you decide to spend more money on your deck. Number 9 is Garuda, Doom of Depths. Another one that's a little iffy because you could benefit off of it being a companion rather than a commander, and I think that does kind of take away from it being a commander is that it is something you would look into. Just having that benefit of having another card you can cast at any point in the game like your commander. That being said, there is an upside here if you are able to copy with clone cards. Garuda's ability is something that can be quite abusable. Same thing if you want to flicker it, anything like that. The benefit here to mill is obviously if you're milling each player, putting the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, and then bringing back a creature, that has a ton of potential. While there isn't really any extra benefit to this specific commander in milling your opponents, outside of the ability itself, milling 4 each time is still going to be incredibly beneficial no matter what kind of mill strategy you're going for. It could be self-mill too because you are milling yourself. Number 8 is Sir Conrad the Grim. One of the strongest strategies for Sir Conrad as a commander is mill. And while mono black doesn't quite have the best mill compared to blue, Sir Conrad probably gives you one of the best ways to capitalize off of mill. You're dealing a damage to each of your opponents each time a creature hits a graveyard. So this happens for your opponent's creatures hitting their graveyards off of mill, it happens for your own creatures hitting your graveyard off of mill. You just get a ton of triggers dealing damage, and hey, if you don't have the cards in black to mill, it's not really a problem because for 2 mana, on a repeated ability you can mill each player anyway. Number 7 we have Anawan the Ruin Thief. Now this is more of a rogue tribal commander, but what I think is really good about some of these mill commanders is that it's more than just simply mill itself, of course. It's a lot more than the end game of milling your opponents out so they have no cards in their library. When they go to draw, they lose the game. That's kind of the old way of thinking, but with mill you want to be able to take advantage of cards in your opponent's graveyard. And for a lot of rogue strategies, you're able to steal cards or able to steal creatures from your opponent's graveyard pretty easily. So having a damage trigger whenever you deal combat damage with a rogue, where you get to mill them for each damage you've dealt, I think is pretty powerful. It means that even if you're not dealing a ton of damage and winning through damage, you are milling their resources. You are going to make it harder for them to come back and recover. And then number 6 we have the Mimeoplasm. Again, not every commander on here is just a mill factory, where everything is about mill. Sometimes it's just about taking advantage of mill after the fact, and I think with Mimeoplasm you really see that. The fact that you can exile 2 creatures from any graveyard, doesn't matter your opponent's or your own, means that you can really benefit off of self-mill, you can benefit off of milling your opponents. And that's what I really prioritize for this list. Something that really adds power to the strategy. Older commander from the original precon, but one that I think is aged pretty well because it's really dependent on the best cards that your opponents have milled. It's always changing depending on what creatures you're able to combine. And then number 5 we have Tasik the Golden Fang, a self-mill commander almost exclusively, but the benefit here with self-mill is incredible. With that activated ability of 4 mana, combined with the fact that you can pretty much reduce the commander tax and everything off of that delve, means that you can, with precision, decide what card you want the most out of your graveyard. It could be a counter spell, it could be a removal spell, it could be a really good tutor. If you're playing this commander the right way, chances are you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's not really up to your opponents anymore. This might just be the most competitive commander on this list because of how many options you have, and just how easy it is to recover late game. And then number 4 we have Phoenix, God of Deception. I really love Phoenix as a pure example of what mill is. If you're looking to just make a deck specifically around the mill strategy, definitely look into Phoenix because that's all Phoenix does. Takes advantage of high toughness creatures by giving them an ability where they can tap to mill an opponent equal to their toughness. There are some combos associated with Phoenix, however, this is not one of the more competitive commanders. I guess you could say my justification for putting it higher up on this list is the fact that I think it does a really good job of being a go-to mill commander. I mean, that's really what you're going for here. You're looking to win through mill. You're looking to benefit off of mill. It's not just a commander that happens to work well with mill. Here you have mill and it's incredibly powerful. And then number 3 we have Arome of the Dead Tide. Doesn't really offer you a way of milling itself, but it's clear the way that this commander is worded, the way that Encore is worded, that you're going to have to build around some kind of self-mill strategy. And if you decide to do, holy cow, Encore is an incredibly powerful ability. It's almost like you combined Graveyard Reanimation with the Myriad ability in order to pull off some pretty insane combos. Not only is it good if you can attack each of your opponents consistently, but getting back these copies, it can be pretty powerful with something like Grey Merchant of Asphodel. It can be pretty powerful with something like Massacre Worm. And then number 2 we have Sadissi Brood Tyrant. Another very clear example of what a mill commander is. It's one of the first ones I think of when I think of the mill strategy, because whenever she enters or attacks, you mill the top 3 cards of your library. If a creature card hits your graveyard from the library, you get a 2/2 zombie, making it also a pretty decent option for a zombie mill commander deck. But it's a subtle ability that, if you leave it alone for too long, it can get out of control. And in combination with zombie tokens, you have a ton of cool reanimator strategies that you can supplement this with, making it very easy to keep value, making it very easy to build up a board presence. And then number 1, we have Brewvac the Grandiloquent. This is it. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for the longest time. Some way of making mill even more viable as a win condition, not just a strategy. Because if you're able to mill, yeah, you have a ton of ways you can benefit off of creatures, instants, and sorceries in the graveyard, but it's not always the easiest thing to mill out an opponent, make it so they have to draw with 0 cards in their library. In fact, I would say it's one of the harder win conditions to pull off. But with Brewvac, you have a 3-mana creature here that makes that easy. You double your mill. So any kind of mill, any instant or sorcery that would normally mill your opponents a certain amount, double that. Makes it so much easier to accomplish your final goal of milling out each opponent. I do appreciate if you are able to experiment with other strategies. If your commander is more than just a mill commander, that's nice. But really focusing on the mill strategy and making that stronger than it's ever been before, I think that definitely is something that I needed to put at the top. So if you enjoyed this list, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. As always, subscribe, like, comment, share, hit that notification bell. I will see you all next time.